Good evening, I'm Ces Oreña-Drilon.
I'm Pauline Verzosa.
And I'm Shawn Yao.
The big stories tonight. The bizarre story of a woman emerging from a gutter in Makati turns out to be an account of a much deeper gut issue. It's making government zoom in yet again on the problem of homelessness and hunger in the country.
Meantime, businessmen are bracing for the EDSA rebuild. They are looking at the impact of the makeover not only on their bottom lines, but on the welfare of their employees as well.
And several lawmakers are questioning the change in schedule of proceedings for Vice President Sara Duterte's impeachment. They hope this is not a tactic to delay or even dismiss the trial altogether.
Di ako nakatira sa isang imburnal. Ako po ay may isang bahay.
Poorest of the poor kasi the mere fact na nakatira na sila sa drainage, talagang hindi katanggap-tanggap yun.
Hers is one of the faces of poverty in the city. The woman who emerged from a sewer has been found and has been given much needed help. But what happens to the rest of the people still out in the streets, homeless and going hungry by the day? Mobile journal Isa Abelio has tonight's big story.
This sight took the internet by storm this week. A woman seemingly coming out of nowhere, crawling out of the drainage system in the business district of Makati. It caused such a clamor that the Department of Social Welfare and Development went out of its way to look for the mystery person. It did not take the DSWD long to find her. The woman, which they named Rose, is a scavenger. On the day she was caught in photos, Rose was looking for trash to sell when something happened.
Nahulugan po kasi ako ng cutter blade na pinipilit ko po siyang kunin eh. Kinuha ko yung cutter, tumayo ko at pag angat ko ng ulo ko, doon ko nakita maraming tao na nakatingin sa akin. Tapos biglang nagulat ako, ang dami na may nagpicture daw pala sa akin.
That cutter is a very important tool for her trade. Rose uses it to remove labels on bottles. Everything was just an accident, she says. She also denied living in the sewer.
Kasi first time ko lang po doon bumaba eh. Kasi araw-araw po ako dumadaan. Hindi ako nakatira sa isang imburnal. Ako po ay may isang bahay.
Rose did admit having gone to a sewer near Makati Medical Center, where she once slept and took a bath in. She said 4 of her friends are still living there.
Doon ako sumiihi, doon ako maano. Ayoko nang ikwento na ibang kong naano kong doon sa ilalim. Doon ako naliligo eh, minsan. Pag nandun lang kami sa pasunta mo.
Rose's story has captured and broke the hearts of many, including DSWD Secretary Rex Gatchalian.
On foot, umaakyat yung mga social worker namin sa overpass at sa underpass. Ngayon, titignan na rin namin itong mga drainage system na maaring pinagbabahayan.
To keep Rose from the streets, the DSWD gave her 80,000 pesos, which she and her live-in partner will use to build and operate a small sari-sari store. Social workers will assess from time to time if the couple needs more help. But there are still Rose's friends that could also use some assistance. She accompanied DSWD personnel in finding them. First, in a creek along Omersola Street in Makati. Then, near the Skyway, where clearing operations of the local government are frequent. And sure enough, Rose's friends were there, still sleeping and unbothered by the danger posed on them by vehicles passing by.
Kung may matatawag tayong poorest of the poor, palagay ko, sila na yung poorest of the poor kasi the mere fact na nakatira na sila sa drainage, talagang hindi katanggap-tanggap yun at sisiguraduhin namin na matulungan sila.
At Rose's prodding, some of her friends finally met with social workers, including a PWD with a pet dog.
Nung pawala na yung araw sa Skyway, opo. Andun yan, maglalatag, magkakanya-kanya na.
Alam niya po din, sir, isang tao tumobile, sir.
Takot sa mobile, no?
Opo.
Alam
Talagang
niya po pag may mobile po eh.
Pero pag kami, hindi naman.
Wala, hindi po kayo.
At the moment, DSWD estimates the total number of homeless people in Metro Manila at 5,000, down from 10,000 before the agency's pag-abot intervention came to be. Mobile journalist Isa Abelio, VR1 News.
Let's talk about Rose and the homeless of Makati and Metro Manila in general. Some more with someone who has actually met them. DSWD Secretary Rex Gatchalian is joining us via Zoom. Good evening to you, Secretary Rex. Welcome to the big story. Thank you for agreeing to come on the show.
Ladies, good evening. Thank you for having me. Good evening to all your televiewers and listeners as well.
How was your encounter with Rose?
Ces, let me just contextualize the story. This is not the first time that I'm meeting people who are living off the streets. You have to remember my background as city mayor opened my eyes to this problem. Number two, when I assumed the DSWD portfolio, the president's marching order was very simple. Make sure that no Filipino is living in the streets. So as early as 2023, we have been conducting Pag-abot program, which is a reach-out program. It's a mainstay in the department. It's not reactionary to anything that happened. Since 2023, we have close to around 100 plus social workers fanning across the metropolis 3 times a day in major thoroughfares, making sure that we reach out to people who are living in the streets. In fact, since the program started, as your report mentioned, we started with an inventory of 10,000 families. Now we're down 10,000 individuals. Now we're down to 5,000. The balance of 5,000, these are people who don't refuse to join us. So what we would do is keep on going back to them, convincing them, because in this template, while we are making sure that they are moving off the streets, we are also recognizing their human rights. Walang pilitan to. We are making sure that this is done in their own volition because we want to make sure that they're comfortable with the decision they're making. And again, as the instruction of the president, we will not stop until Metro Manila's families are not living, or not a single family in Metro Manila is living in the streets. What's very interesting or curious about this, what's peculiar about this story is we were operating in streets, major thoroughfares, highways, flyovers, underpass. But we were caught by surprise that there are some families or individuals living inside the drainage system of our city.
Yes. That's why it's so unusual. That's why it captured the attention of, well, not just social media, but practically everyone, because of, living in the sewer is really, like you said, the life of the poorest of the poor. So, but we know also that the transition from living off the streets to, a more stable home is difficult. It's long. Many just returned back. So how are you, your statistics, you mentioned that it's down to 5,000, but how has that effort been? Enticing them or getting them to know that there is a different kind of life?
Ces, it's a multi-pronged question. Let me answer that in 2 folds. First of all the departments in the country, DSWD has the track record of case management. Our social workers are trained to case manage. It's not when we do get somebody off the streets, we put them into temporary housing, we evaluate what will they need to be able to reintegrate back into their communities. Some will go home to their provinces with economic grants. Some will opt to stay in Metro Manila and we will find them temporary housing or rentals together with economic grants. There's no one size fits all. It really depends on the peculiarity or the nuance of that person's case. But what's important is the follow-up efforts done by our case managers or our social workers. In the case of Rose, let's just talk about Rose. It can be done. She was living off the streets for more than a year ago, but she and her partner decided they wanted out of the streets, so they made ends meet, and they ended up with a rental. They were bed spacing for 2,000 pesos in a month. We looked at the home. It was a decent house, but what is more pressing for her would be a sustainable source of income. That's why the social worker decided to execute a recommendation for an 80,000 peso worth of grant so she can start a store. Now, why is a sari-sari store something that they recommended when we know that it's quite difficult to run a sari-sari store? In the case of Rose, she had the fiscal discipline early on. Imagine mo, they were only making 500 pesos a day, yet they managed to move out of the streets, and end up in a rental worth 2,000 pesos a month. So that means that discipline is there. So we just have to help her set up that store, monitor them so that they don't get back on the streets. So basically what I'm trying to say is, crucial here will be the role of our social workers. The case management that happens during and after we reintegrate them back into our communities. Now, the second question, how difficult has it been? Very difficult. You have to remember, I was a city mayor, and we know that social welfare is devolved. But we also know that our local government units are strapped with so many responsibilities that they barely have enough resources to do this on their own. That's why the President instructed me to work with the local government units and set up this Pag-abot program. Can you imagine, since 2023, we've managed to profile 10,000 individuals, but only 5,000 came with us. Why? Because other 5,000 would always say, one, they're better off living off the streets because it is something that they know. It is something that they're used to surviving with. It's basically living with what they know rather than the unknown for them. Two, there's that fear that when they join DSWD, this might be hollow promises, or we might just throw them back into shelters perpetually. These are people who actually want to earn a living and want to stand on their own feet. So that's why the silver lining, I guess, of this story is this morning Rose went with us to try to convince people she knew living in the streets. And it actually worked. So this might be a model that we can use in other cities. Try to use proof of concept that the Pag-abot program works, and it's real. It's not just hollow promises of livelihood, but rather real success stories. And baka makumbinsi namin sila. But the bottom line there is we can't stop. The President's instruction has been very clear. No Filipino should be living on the streets, living in flyovers, underpass, more so drainage systems. So we won't stop until all 5,000 in our database are in temporary shelters, permanent shelters, or reintegrated back into their communities with the proper sustainable livelihood programs.
But Secretary, let's go to the bigger picture. Under your watch, poverty has risen based on the SWS survey in March to 52%, and self-rated hunger among the very poor has risen to 35.6%. This despite all your efforts. How would you answer this?
Yes, number one, there are multiple ways. I am not an economist, but if you do ask economists, there are multiple ways of gauging poverty. For SWS, it's self-rated, and we will not dispute that. But also, if we look at the data-driven threshold set by PSA, poverty has actually gone down in the Marcos administration. It is now at 15.5%. 15.5% poverty incidence, down from 18%. But sige, let's engage the numbers of SWS. This morning also, we reported that Globe commissioned a study by SWS to gauge the success of our Walang Gutom program, or the President's flagship program, food stamp program, wherein we're giving food poor families. These are families who don't make beyond 9,000 pesos a month, who barely have enough to feed their families. Electronic benefit cards that they go to their nearest accredited retailer and they get food credits to shop for carbohydrates, protein, and fiber. And this morning, this study of Globe Telecom, they commissioned SWS, the very same firm that does the quarterly experiential hunger survey, because their surveys are based on experience or self-rated. They use the same questionnaire, and it turns out that in the areas where Walang Gutom operated, hunger incidents went down. Now, kaya namin sabihin, 300,000 Pilipino ang kumakain ng mas maayos at patuloy nang bumababa ang insidente ng kagutuman. Meaning there is a solution, and the President's instruction is to scale this program up as fast as we can so that we can eliminate hunger once and for all. I don't think there has been an administration that has taken a bold step other than the Marcos administration in trying to end hunger once and for all.
We'd appreciate having a copy of that study, Secretary.
Actually, it's all posted already
is it? Okay.
In our social media accounts.
Okay.
And this morning, the briefing was conducted by SWS and Globe. And I was just in the side talking about the program. But it's already published. And in fact, next week, we'll also be attending a couple of press cons together with SWS and Globe so that they can be the one to enlighten them and the public on their study that they commissioned.
Okay. Secretary, allow me to circle back to Rose and her story, and this time the Pag-abot program. We are familiar with the food stamp program, Walang Gutom, but Pag-abot is a bit new, at least to my ears. I know it's not new. Rose got 80,000 pesos. Where do we get the funding for this, and how do we determine how much to give? Is it also case to case? And how do we check that indeed tinayo niya yung sari-sari store niya, and to give her tools and help for her to succeed?
Okay, two things. Both the food stamp program and the Pag-abot program are innovations of the Marcos administration. These are instructions of the president. The food stamp program is also fairly new. It's the boldest initiative done by any president to end hunger. You can check that. You can fact check me on that. When I talk about hunger, we're talking about involuntary hunger here. There have been programs to solve malnutrition, undernutrition, but there has been no bold initiative directly trying to tackle hunger itself. Number two, Pag-abot is also fairly new because this is a national government-driven program. It's a mainstay program with a appropriation budget because the president came up with a executive order pushing for the Pag-abot program. So the Congress gave us the budget to operate the program on a whole year basis, 24/7. We pan across Metro Manila looking for people who are living in the streets. So again, it's financed by the General Appropriations Act. There's a line item there. It's a fairly new line item because the president means business. He said when I joined the department to make sure that no Filipinos living in the streets, he put his money where his mouth is. And that's why we have an appropriation for this program. Now, how do we make sure na sa tama or the money spent rightfully? One, the social workers. I mentioned case management. Social workers are trained to decipher what a family needs or a person needs. Of course, they can't be 100% accurate, but it comes close to that because they look at the background, they look at the nuances of the family, they look at the peculiar needs or challenges of the family. So they are the ones who recommends the amount and what type of intervention or economic intervention we do give. And number three, like I mentioned, there will be constant visits. We have to make sure that these grants go to the right place, as you mentioned. So there's monitoring all the time. In fact, the first spending last night, we did give her the cash. But if you look at the post that we did, the social worker was with her, hand-holding her as she bought the initial stocks for her store. In the coming weeks, in the coming months, if the relationship will not end, we'll make sure that we monitor the success of the Sustainable Livelihood program that we gave her. Also, let me point out that we're also looking at the husband or the partner and trying to empower him to with the right skill set. And that's why we're working with other agencies because in ending poverty, we have to work with other agencies. One agency like DSWD cannot do it alone. So we're working with TESDA to give the partner the right skill set so that he can enter into skills-based employment, welding, the practical ones where his skill set will come in, carpentry, masonry. The goal there, according to the social worker, is to provide a two-income source for the family. They don't have kids. That way, we can make sure that it's sustainable and it's more stable.
Very quickly, Secretary, as a follow-up to those critics who would say that these two programs would just reinforce ayuda culture, what would you have to say to that?
Again, both programs are conditional in nature. The Pag-abot program has conditions wherein the social worker will do visits. It's pretty much what you see in first world countries. They do case management. You have to show up when the social worker calls you to evaluate how your life has been. So that's a condition by itself. And also, it's not like we're giving them cash. We're making sure that the cash goes to livelihood program, to a livelihood enterprise. In this case, it's a store. And in the husband's case, it won't be cash. It'll be in the form of technical assistance through TESDA so that he gets the right skill set to be able to venture into skilled labor, into the skilled labor market. Now, for Walang Gutom, there is a graduation to it. What is the graduation? Every 2 years, the country conducts a family income and expenditure survey. At the same time, the community-based monitoring system is already in play. Meaning, every 2 years, we get a profile of the families, whether or not they should still be part of the program. Remember, in the Walang Gutom program, there's a work conditionality to it. Now that you are being given food, you'll have enough energy to go out in the workforce. We will require you to show us that you are taking actions or tangible steps into coming into the workforce. Again, DOLE is our partner. They would conduct job fairs for our beneficiaries in the coming days. And two, TESDA is also around to provide the necessary skill set so that when we do try to bring them into the workforce, they have the right skill sets. It's a whole of government approach. It's just not one department, but it's multiple departments working in unison to make sure that people get the right skills and that these support, as the president calls them, are temporary in nature. There is a graduation, there are conditions. So it won't breed the culture of mendicancy that everybody's scared of, and so do we. You have to remember the department's name is Social Welfare and Development, and this is the development side of our work.
Okay, but Secretary, just going back to that issue of the underground community, help us understand how deep, how rampant is that problem? Is it just in Makati? I believe Rose was also telling about a story about this other cave near a hospital in Makati where that's where people actually live underground.
Let me clarify. The drain that Rose came out of isn't a drain where people lived in. The story there is she went inside the drainage system because her cutter that she uses for her kalakal or her livelihood or her scavenging this enterprise fell into the drainage. So she had to go in and retrieve it. But that drainage is small, narrow, and it's not, people can't go in and out.
Hindi totoong drainage motel daw yon.
Hindi doon yun. Hindi yun, Ces.
May iba pa.
Now, ang kwento ni Rose told us, ang pagkakwento niya, meron tinatawag nilang Botanical Garden, which is close to the Makati Medical Center. That's where we went this morning. Sabi niya, doon nakatira kasi yun, mas malaki yung entrada and people actually live there. So this morning, we went there because she pointed out where it is and she knew people living there but they weren't there. So ang sinabi niya, pagka ganito na nabubulabog, nagpupunta sila sa south, sa Skyway. That's why we ended up going to the Skyway where that was parang Site B. Whenever they couldn't live in the drain, they would go to the south, to Skyway and live by the side of the flyover. And that's where we managed to convince a couple to join us in our center.
Okay. Secretary, can we assume that the President has not accepted your courtesy resignation?
I don't want to preempt the announcement of the palace. Let's wait for that announcement. But what's very clear with me is that I have to stay in my post, run the department every day so that programs don't stop. So I leave it at that. We cannot preempt the judgment of the President. Like I mentioned in my tweet early on, I serve at the pleasure of the President. I respect whatever his decision will be pertaining to my courtesy resignation. Basta ako, ang instruction to not leave my post unmanned and to make sure that programs are running.
What's it like though? We are on the edge of our seats. I can imagine you know, who has a whole portfolio to manage. What's it like waiting for the verdict?
Because of the job, been up since 4, I think, with your reporters. I just got back and I'm still on to a couple more meetings. Says you barely have time to think anyway about the future. You just have to keep on taking your job seriously. Work is what keeps me preoccupied. Ako, again, when I signed up to join the cabinet, it has always been in the forefront of my mind that I serve at the pleasure of the President. It's a temporary gig it's a temporary job. Sorry, forgive me for using the word gig. It's a temporary job that is hinged on performance. And that's why I appreciate what's happening because it keeps us grounded. It keeps us in the right context that these are positions that are temporary in nature. So you live every day as if it was your last day, and I've been living it like my last day since I joined the cabinet. Sa dami rin ang gagawin, you just have to keep on pushing and powering through all throughout the day.
One final question, Secretary. It may be heaven sent in a way that the case of Rose showed, allowed you to talk about your programs, etc., because it has been pointed out that the government may be failing in messaging, in telling the people, oh, we're doing this. People don't know. Do you concede that there might be a failure in information?
Says, ladies, I would rather put it this way. Everything we do isn't perfect, even in the department, and there's always room for improvement. And we acknowledge that in everything we do, there will always be room to do it better. I'd like to put it that way. So the silver lining here, I would rather think is we would operate in streets, we would operate in skyways, flyovers, or underpass for the past 3 years. Little did we know that there's a segment of our homeless population living inside the drainage. You have to remember, I've been in public service for 21 years. I used to think that I've seen it all, but the silver lining here is it woke me up this morning that there are people living underneath the road, the very roads where we operate in. And I will not stop. The president's instruction is very clear. I will not stop until we find all these individuals living in, I guess, subterranean levels of our city.
Secretary Gatchalian, thank you so much for your time. We hope this won't be the last time on The Big Story.
Oh, it won't. It won't. And I really want to talk to you guys again. There are many programs that we want to share with the general public.
Thank you very much. That was DSWD Secretary Rex Gatchalian. PNP Chief General Romel Marbil defends his would-be successor, Major General Nicolas Torre III, from accusations his promotion was just a case of political accommodation. Marbil said he has long known CIDG Director Torre and is very good in everything he does. That's why he believes Torre's ascent to the PNP leadership isn't just a reward for the capture of Kingdom of Jesus Christ founder Apollo Quiboloy and former President Rodrigo Duterte. Marbil is also confident the road ahead will be easier for Torre because of the reforms he implemented among the police ranks, such as internal cleansing, a more organized crime response system, and reorganization. He even believes Torre could do things better than he had. Marbil is set to turn over the PNP leadership to Torre on Monday, June 2.
I know he's better than me. Hindi siya as a reward because capable naman yung tao talaga. Magaling sinik. He can decide, he can do. And I guess that's a good decision na ginawa ng presidente natin.
Now, over in Congress, lawmakers are questioning the delay in the trial of Vice President Sara Duterte. That's after Senate President Ces Escudero moved the presentation of impeachment articles from June 2 to June 11, citing the need to prioritize more urgent legislative measures. Senator Amy Marcos, who has just won a fresh mandate, agrees with Escudero's move, saying Duterte's ouster trial is politically motivated anyway. But outgoing Senator Coco Pimentel feels otherwise, with the upper chamber duty-bound to proceed with the exercise. He also wonders why Escudero changed his very own impeachment calendar. Pimentel further explained a provision in impeachment rules which state the legislative agenda must give way to trial proceedings. Now, for former Senate President Franklin Drilon, there is no other option for the Senate now but to try Duterte over high crimes, alleged corruption, and betrayal of public trust. He also sees everything being resolved by the country's highest tribunal in the end.
So you expect Sara, Vice President Sara, to file a motion to dismiss. And as I have said previously, the impeachment court has three options: to dismiss it, in which case it goes to the Supreme Court, to proceed on jurisdiction, in which case it goes to the Supreme Court, and number three, rule that we will rule on the motion for dismiss together at the end of the trial. This will go to the Supreme Court. So in any of these options, it will end up in the Supreme Court.
House lawmakers are dismayed by the holdup in initial proceedings for Duterte's impeachment. They hope this delay will not affect the trial proper. The Senate is supposed to sit as an impeachment court in July, right after the 20th Congress's opening and the fourth State of the Nation address of President Bongbong Marcos.
I am disheartened because the delay has been long enough. I personally will accept whatever the Senate will decide on. I hope that they will uphold their constitutional duty to proceed with trial forthwith.
Hindi ko alam kung tactic po nila yon, pero may delay talaga. Panindigan nila yung pinadala nilang huling letter, so we can't afford dramatic changes during po sa mga time na to.
Still on that impeachment, 88% of Filipinos believe that Vice President Sara Duterte should address the issue. That's the finding from the most recently conducted social weather station survey. Apart from facing ouster moves, a whopping 93% of respondents said that the VP should work to prioritize the country's needs. Other things that Filipinos say Sara Duterte should prioritize are the implementation of her platforms and policies and the continuation of her duties as the second highest or most powerful figure in the land. Some Filipinos also believe that the VP should stop the politicking and refrain from criticizing the government. The SWS survey was conducted between May 2 and 6, or right before the midterm elections, among 1,800 respondents.
We're just going to take a quick break, but coming up, businessmen are mulling the possibility of flexible working hours for their employees when the construction of EDSA begins. We'll be speaking with Apa Ongpin of the Makati Business Club when the big story returns. Stay tuned.
You're watching the big story here on One News. It's the 5th day since the No Contact Apprehension Policy, or NCAP, was implemented, and it looks like the number of violators is actually going down. According to the MMDA, there were 647 violators as of 3 p.m. Friday, compared to over 1,100 Monday and an average of 800 and 900 on the succeeding days. The MMDA believes this is an indication drivers have become more disciplined on the road. But the NCAP is still getting mixed reactions. Some motorists have pointed out confusing signs and lane markings. There are also questions on just how many times a motorist can be charged under NCAP in a day. Here's MMDA's explanation.
If there are certain aspects of the road signs or the road markings na merong discrepancy, we will definitely be a little bit lenient sa mga violators or sa mga motorista po natin. Kung ikaw ay natsyempohan, isang stretch of the road that there is an NCAP, tuloy-tuloy yan. Kung iba't ibang violations, iba't ibang pitik din yan.
And then there are those trying to outsmart the system by covering their license plates. The MMDA has this reminder.
I think there's no purpose na para takpan nyo ang inyong mga plaka. So wag po kayo mag-aalala, wag po kayo matatakot na kung iniisip nyo basta na lang po kayo mabibigyan ng violation. Hindi po tayo ganon.
Another concern when the EDSA rebuild starts is how do companies feel about flexible work setups and hours for their employees? And joining us live in our studio is Makati Business Club Executive Director Apa Ongpin. Good evening, welcome to the big story, Apa.
Hi.
Sorry to take you away from your date night. But how was the traffic?
It was terrible today, but as the previous item showed, it was much more orderly on the streets since the NCAP. It's really visible.
I agree.
You really see a lot less people violating, especially the motorcycles. They're all now lined up, in the right lane and so on and so forth.
So that's a good thing.
Yeah, it's a good thing.
Now, has government or any agency, have they approached the business community like MBC to, request flexible working hours in view of the coming 2-year?
No, and we're very disappointed that the MMDA has not taken a sort of collaborative approach to this. Instead, they just, dispense this new coding scheme on our heads. And, coding, it's mixed reviews, right? I mean, arguably, it has not really successfully decreased traffic volume in the 27 or whatever years that we've had it. I mean, we've had it since 1987, right?
So I guess you'll just do this on your own. I mean, have a meeting? I don't know. What initiative is the business community taking?
We are trying to get together with Secretary Vince Dizon. We've invited him to a talk. He hasn't accepted the invitation yet, but he's already engaged with us. In the,
sa dami ng ginagawa niya.
Yeah, sa dami ng ginagawa niya. No? But about this particular thing, we want to hear him out, and we want him to hear us out. With regard to what we can do on our own, without government intervention, obviously staggered working hours is one thing, and a lot of work from home, which which the pandemic showed. Work from home does decrease productivity, unfortunately, but traffic and delay and all of that stuff decreases it a lot more. No, so those that can will really, strongly contemplate.
Or a hybrid setup.
Hybrid setup, yeah.
Parang a few days home, a few days.
The Makati Business Club, for instance, we only require our staff to come in 3 days a week. There's a few, 3 or 4 people who need to be there every day, right? But the rest of the staff, especially the officers, 3 days a week. The rest of the days, you're working remotely. Either you're attending events or you're working from home.
Yes, because you don't want to react only when the rebuild is happening. I mean, you want to anticipate this, right? But it's June, mid-June, right? Happening mid-June.
Well, it'll start.
Uneven dry run is starting in mid-June at least.
Yeah.
For a month. But Apa, I was wondering though, like amongst your members, what is stopping, some employers or some businesses from actually pushing through with a hybrid setup or a
Nothing
staggered
at all. Nothing at all. People are gonna do it.
You think?
If you can, if you can do it, you will, because there are businesses that you just can't.
Right.
Right. I mean, BPO is one. Banking, is another one.
Like factories, stuff like that.
Well, but those are outside the city.
Maybe carpooling, I don't know.
Shuttles,
services.
yeah.
Yeah, those are all great ideas. No, we like the shuttle idea. We would also like the government to extend the capacity and the throughput and the delivery of the mass transport systems. Because a lot of our people, just in Makati Business Club, they depend on the MRT to get to work. No? And the MRT is already beyond capacity at this point. We have to increase the capacity, take people out of cars and put them on the train.
For instance, there was the Makati-Taguig battle has put the
Makati subway
right under question.
Yeah,
is there something the MBC can do to,
Well, that's politics, no?
that?
It's a political issue. I mean, we'd very much like the project to continue. We think it's really not just a good thing to have, but actually quite necessary. We have terrible mass transport options in our city, and this would really be a boon, no?
Yeah.
I mean, you're dealing with two different cities who are, at super odds with each other. Trying to get them to shake hands is
But
like...
since you're your members are the sources of the biggest taxpayers of both cities, I'm sure,
Well,
you can exert some
again,
suasion.
this was a project of the Makati city government, right? It was not Department of Transportation or whatever. I think we should try to get Secretary Vince to take this on and say, look, this is a national project, all right? This is the national capital, and let's make this happen. I think he can do it,
Well, Apa, going back to the EDSA rebuild, what if businesses are incentivized with tax cuts, benefits? Will companies be more inclined to adopt flexible work schemes?
I doubt that Congress will pass tax cuts for flexible work schemes. But if that were the case, sure, we'll do it. Right?
Anong sweeteners bang pwede bang ibigay na incentives? If not tax cuts,
It's a big question mark.
Let me zero in on something you said. Ces asked you earlier, did anyone coordinate with the Makati Business Club on some sort of stakeholder, kumbaga, brainstorming? So wala. I was thinking maybe, I don't know, the OSAPIA would have tried to, gathered some businesses and put them together and say, hey, look, like, what can we do? Barring that, Apa, are you guys taking on the initiative also to kind of like do a brainstorming amongst maybe yourselves or with other business groups as well?
Yeah, this is an issue where unfortunately the government is really they're all in their own silos. They're not talking to each other enough, right? The Makati Business Club, what we like about this administration, in particular the cabinet secretaries, is they have been very consultative, very collaborative. We've reached out, we've talked to cabinet secretaries, we've talked to the department teams and so on and so forth, and they've been listening to us, So,
except in the case of the EDSA rebuild. Hindi.
This one, none. They're all in their silos,
What are your thoughts on the whole rebuild? Do we really need it? A lot of people are, kind of like just thinking about it. It's been raining today. The traffic has been terrible. And, some people are like, do we really need it? And I have to admit, I am one of them. How much do we need this, really?
Well, the Guadalupe Bridge is already nearing a critical state.
Yes, the
so
bridge.
that
But the whole
absolutely
thing.
has to be done, okay? The rest of it, it has to be done. We have actually been advocating for it. We, Makati Business Club, and our allies in the mobility, Sina Alt Mobility and Move As One Coalition, we like these guys, right? And they've been agitating for it. What they've been agitating for is not just a rebuilding of EDSA, it's a re-engineering of EDSA, okay, to make it better for all
Even
the transport
pedestrians.
options. Because it's very car-centric at this point. It's totally car-centric. The bus lane is an afterthought, diba? So we wanted to prioritize mass transport that carries more people for the amount of space, okay? And we want pedestrians and bicycles given their own space.
Their safe space.
Yeah. We don't want bicycles and motorcycles mixed together because it's very dangerous.
How about DOLE? Has DOLE reached out? Hindi rin.
No.
But they did urge companies to adopt flexible work schemes, right?
Okay, yeah. But we have not interfaced directly with them.
Okay, I just wanted to shift gears quickly. You did mention previously that the Makati Business Club is quite happy with the current economic team. That's the first wave of the great cabinet revamp. It looks like the economic team stayed. What are the specific qualities or achievements of the economic secretaries of the cabinet that led you to a positive assessment to say that you are happy with them?
Well, it's exactly what I said. They've been open, they've been collaborative, and they've been consultative. It's not this dictatorial kind of, okay, we're gonna do this, bahala kayo sa buhay nyo. No?
Do you mean DTI, DOF?
Yes.
NEDA?
Yes. And we like that about them. I mean, especially coming from the previous administration. We like them individually, We feel that these guys are the best qualified for this job. That's why we actually, went out on a limb and said, please keep these guys.
But we're not going to meet our growth targets this year.
No, we're going to get pretty close. We're going to get pretty close. There's a lot of external factors. The whole Trump trade and tariff issue, it's very difficult for foreign direct investment to operate in that kind of climate. Diba? Why are you going to invest in another country if the tariffs are going to shoot up like this? So, we see that they're doing the best they can. They've certainly been able to control inflation, and they've done a great job with interest rates. We're very happy with the performance, of the economic team in that respect. So in terms of, pushing the right buttons, these guys have been pushing the right buttons.
Are there other milestones or achievements that you hope to see in the last 3 terms of the administration when it comes to the economic team?
I mean, I suppose there are. I can't give you a list right now, but we think they're on the right track to do it.
Now let's go back to the EDSA rebuild. Is there going to be a cost naman to MBC or corporations because of the, decrease in...
There's going to be a huge
What will suffer,
cost.
for instance?
Number one is productivity, right? Because you're going to have people stuck in traffic. And when they're stuck in traffic, they can't work, right? So there's going to be delays. There's going to be all of this stuff.
Lower sales in malls, you think?
Well, yeah, the delivery of retail goods, of course, is going to be affected, right?
Or more. I mean, people could be hanging out in malls waiting for traffic to tide over. Mapapagastos ka pa nga actually kasi pag nasa mall.
Well, I saw you kanina that they said that consumer spending will go up. Right? You're the analyst you talk to.
They're seeing that. Are
Maybe.
you seeing?
I mean, we're all going to adapt in the ways we know how, right? But business will bear the brunt of these costs,
But we have to bite the bullet.
Yeah,
Maybe as a last point, no, on this EDSA rebuild, you made a really good point, starting off with Guadalupe, because that is the segment that really needs some seismic retrofitting.
Yes.
Right? JICA said so. This was like over a decade ago.
Yeah,
so it's been overdue. But actually, it's the part of EDSA that divides the northern half and the southern half. They will do the southern half first. It's also the part that still doesn't have a solution because DPWH Secretary Bonoan said he will not be touching the bridge until the little bypass bridges are built.
Yeah.
Right. I don't know. What do you guys, I don't know, maybe is there something the MBC can do to, like, I don't know, push the agencies or?
Well, I don't want to tell them how to do their job, right? Diba? I mean, these guys, they're heads of these departments for a reason, They're the experts in these things. So it's up to them to propose the solutions. Now, with regard to the whole rebuild, we also need to see the opportunities in it, okay? First, the opportunity to re-engineer EDSA into having a much better throughput for people, not for cars, for people, okay?
Yeah.
Number two, how can we increase the throughput in the alternatives to EDSA, diba? How can we give better flow of the system so that we're not all reliant on EDSA, diba? This is an opportunity. It's a challenge.
Okay, I like that. I like silver lining, especially on Friday evenings.
Yeah, sometimes you don't look past the difficulties. But thank you so much, Apa, for joining us, and we hope we'll see you again. Not on date night.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us this Friday
You
evening.
should serve better drinks,
We'll see about that.
We'll see.
That was
Maybe
Makati
later.
Business Club Executive Director Apa Ongpin.
We do have more stories for you after this quick break. Keep it here on One News.
Naman. Welcome back to the big story. Former Congressman Arnie Teves is now at the NBI detention facility in the new Bilibid prison in Muntinlupa after his deportation from Timor-Leste. According to his lawyer, Ferdinand Topacio, Teves is alone in his cell, which has its own tiny restroom and electric fan. Earlier, the NBI permitted Teves to face the press. Teves vows to face all the murder cases against him, including the killing of former Negros Oriental Governor Roel Degamo in 2023. He says he was worried about his safety. That's why he stayed in Timor-Leste for 2 years.
Malungkot ako dahil siyempre makukulong ako na habang makukulong ako. So, kahit hindi pa, dito kasi makukulong ka kahit hindi ka pa convicted, no? May mga ano naman yun, si Attorney Ferdinand bahala. But what I'm saying, on the other hand, I'm also glad that I haven't seen my mother for 2 years.
In other news, the Sandigan Bayan finds Muntinlupa Mayor Rufy Biazon guilty of graft, but they acquitted him of malversation. This is still over the pork barrel scam back in 2007 when Biazon was a congressman. The anti-graft court sentenced him to a minimum of 6 years to 8 years in prison, plus perpetual disqualification from holding public office. Despite the conviction, Biazon is staying in his post and will be appealing the verdict. His legal team will be filing a motion for reconsideration, noting that 3 out of the 4 charges, including bribery and money laundering, have already been dropped.
Now, shifting gears to sports, the Las Filipinas men's team has arrived in New York City early morning today for their training and the promotion of the upcoming FIVB Men's World Championship 2025 to be hosted right here in the Philippines this coming September. And now reporting live from the Big Apple is Carlo Pamintuan of One Sports. Hey, Carlo, good evening here from Manila. Tell us, what is the first thing on the agenda for Las Filipinas men's?
Hi, Pauline. Good morning from New York. Well, after arriving here in New York City, it was straight to the hotel for a bit of rest for our Las Filipinas men. But the first order of business will be visiting the Philippine consulate later today in Manhattan. And really, the big event that we're waiting for is Alas Filipinas joining the 35th annual celebration of the Filipino community here in New York of the Philippine Independence Day. There will be a parade, there will be cultural nights and presentations. There will even be a gala night that our squad will be joining. After that, there will also be a training camp here where they will help train some of the local volleyball players here in New York from the Filipino community. After that, select members of that training pool will then have an exhibition game, an opportunity to play against Alas Filipinas. That will happen tomorrow, Saturday afternoon here in New York time. But again, it's just a big celebration of Filipino culture along with Alas Filipinas, an open invitation to everyone here in New York and in the wider United States to come home for September, because the Filipino volleyball players will need all the help they can get. They will need all the cheers from the Filipino fans as they take on really strong teams in Egypt, Tunisia, and Iran as they compete in the FIVB Men's World Championship.
But tell us, Carlo, how long are they staying there in the United States, and why was New York City chosen as the venue for their training camp? Is there a huge fan base there as well of Filipino volleyball fans?
It's a very short trip. I believe they're staying here for less than 7 days or less than a week. I think it was mostly because New York had the biggest celebration of the Philippine Independence Day. That's why they chose to be here. And the love, the support coming from the Filipino community here in New York was too much to pass up on. We know that they worked really hard to put together this event, and Alas was chosen to be one of their guests. And it just so happened that there will also be a training camp for them. It's more to bond with the Filipino community here than to really hone their skills for the upcoming tournament come September. This is really more of looking for more talent and just strengthening the connection between our national team and the locals here.
Okay, and finally, Carlo, tell us about the composition of the national team. I believe Brian Bagunas has rejoined the national team over there since he recovered from that knee injury.
It's always great to see Brian Bagunas joining the training pool. I think he is still working hard to become 100%. Mark Espejo is also here. After that, you have a lot of big name players. The best of the best have really come together to be able to perform at their very best. You have Steven Rotter, who is coming off a finals MVP stint with Signal HD in the Spikers turf. So in terms of talent, wala ka nang hihingin pa. You can't ask for anything more in terms of forming the national team. Right now, it's really up to the coaches. It's up to the staff to push them and to maximize each and every opportunity that they will have in getting better. Because this is not just the lone foreign trip that they will have. They will be having a couple of more trips, a couple of more tournaments for them to really be at their best come September.
All right, well, exciting days ahead for the national team. But thank you very much for that update. That was Carlo Pamintuan of One Sports.
And that's it for the big story on this Friday, this week. Happy weekend.
TGIF.
TGIF.
We are One News, all sides, all the time.
Thank you for watching. Enjoy your weekend, everyone.